It's an At the Office edition of the East Bank Sports Show, serving up the hottest sports takes from right here in Cleveland, Ohio. It's your hosts, Noah, John, and Erik.
Cleveland, welcome into the office, the show where we talk all things sports. Happy Halloween, Wild Thing Ricky Vaughn here in the flesh. Just kidding. It's your boy Noah with my boy Erik. You can join the conversation with us too. Use a comment, type into X, into YouTube, into Facebook if you're watching live. And we have a phone number too, 216-250-1411. Give us a message. Talk to us about sports as we go through our live broadcast today. And if you are listening from home, please hit that subscribe button. Download the podcast if you're listening to the audio after the fact. But Erik, my man, happy Thursday, happy Halloween. How are you?
Wow, thing. You're bringing the energy, which is bringing me up, which I love. You're shot out of a cannon. I'm doing great. I'm so excited for this show. But yeah, I'm good. Let's get going.
Yeah, let's get after it. And, we're going to 30-second. Actually, you're in here. So we will do 30-second takes traditionally and timer each other and do that whole thing. The Cavs blew out the Lakers last night. Was very proud as I was working my shift to not have to care as much about watching the game and just getting my tasks done so I could go home and go to bed. Got to see Bronny's first bucket, which was cool, but I want to talk more about that in hot takes. Erik, we're a week in. Our last episode, we did a preview on the Cavs. How are you feeling now, man? 30 seconds on the clock. You ready?
Let's do it.
Go.
First of all, if Noah is like predicting the end of the world, I might be listening because he was dead on right about just about everything he said. Listen, I thought we needed a key piece. It felt like other teams around the league were getting better when we weren't. That piece might just be Coach Kenny Atkinson. He was my favorite from the beginning because he's a two-way coach. He's a very offensive-minded coach, but he adjusts, and that's something we haven't seen. When it's not working, he changes things up, and, hey, it's the best start since 2016.
Yeah, I'm going to echo you because I agree with everything you said. I feel good being able to take a victory lap after, some of the Deshaun Watson faith that I've had, the player, not off the field, and some of those kind of takes. But I'm very happy with what. Yeah. Nah, whatever, man. I'm very happy with what I've seen out of this Cavs team so far. They seem like they're going to be that offensive juggernaut that I predicted could happen under head coach Kenny Atkinson. Let's win some more basketball, baby. I'm ready.
We'll start calling you Noah Stradamus, something like that.
I'm ready. Wild Thing's ready for everything. I'm ready to give him the heater. Speaking of the heater, you've been excited to go into this topic for
so excited
couple days now. So we're talking, are the Browns going to stay in downtown? We're basically going to go in a deep dive. This article came out from NEO Transit blog about what the what the Burke Lakefront idea would have been if they went down that route. There's some sticking points there. There's that kind of thing. Erik, I know you have a presentation. I have a presentation. Mine, I'm going to go through first because it's just the traditional pictures. I want to kind of compare and contrast the Burke versus the Brook Park location.
Sure.
Kind of give some of our thoughts, and then we can go into what you have prepared for these wonderful people on Halloween night.
Yeah, for sure. Give a little bit of history, though, real quick on Burke and the Burke location for those that aren't aware or aren't Clevelanders.
Yeah, so Burke Lakefront Airport is a small private airport for private planes, business executives, the top 1%, that is taking up and has been an eyesore to the lakefront area of Cleveland for as long as it's been there. It has always been of popular belief and popular want to bulldoze that whole location and turn it into something. We were told for a while that Brown Stadium couldn't go there because it's a landfill and it's land on top of a landfill. But obviously they have figured out a way to make this work or else we wouldn't be talking about it. Well, maybe. Erik, go ahead. What were you? I want to see what you were.
Yeah, this dives into my proposal. So we'll just hold that for now.
Okay. So supposedly it works now, regardless of however you want to think about it. Obviously, keeping the Browns downtown has always been my stance. But I want to show the two locations, kind of compare and contrast what they got going in, and then we'll go to Erik's take. So going up first, Here, if you're watching from video form, I'm sorry for those who are listening to the podcast edition. Look it up, NEO Transit blog. They're a short, small group of people who write about, developments in Northeast Ohio. You should go check it out if you're a Browns fan, Cavs fan, Guardians fan. This is the walk into the stadium, Huntington Bank Field, which would be on Burke Lakefront Airport. Erik, what are your reactions when you see this?
I'm a big fan of the Burke location. This came from you said NEO Transit, but this was pushed heavily by Destination Cleveland.
Yep.
Listen, I think it's one of the best locations that they could possibly have. There's a few hiccups there, which I'll get into when I'm presenting my alternative. I had a commission studied as well, or a study commissioned, I should say, which we'll talk about. But apart from the dome and how it looks itself, which I think people got a little hung up on, this is just a rendering. It's not what it would ever finalize to be. It's pretty cool. It's a great location.
Yeah, we continue on. This is an overview, like an aerial of what it would look like, how it would fit in. So I know this might not apply to some of you non-Clevelanders, but you can kind of see the vision with some of these roundabouts getting put in, extra parking lots, bulldozing that whole area and turning it into, retail, hotels, extra parking, that kind of thing, to really basically do what they're doing in Brook Park at Lakefront Airport.
I gotta say, my favorite part of this proposal is actually this slide, because you see the stadium footprint here, and like you said, the hotels, some of the shopping. This is just east of the Rock Hall, for those not familiar. So off the screen where Noah and I are right now is where current Brown Stadium would be. But my favorite part and why I like this so much is you have this visionary approach where you're really rehabbing the lake itself, right? You have this beautiful lake. And then for 3/4 of this property, we decided to build Central Park Cleveland. Just a lot of trees. I was a little unsure of that area, but whatever. We'll get to that, I guess.
Yeah, I look at this and I think this is like plan A of development. You're putting all of that in. I don't think they're going to leave all of that tree area to the right or the east of the stadium there forever. If they're going to bulldoze the whole thing, I think eventually you're going to see development after development there. But
for sure. And it should be noted that, Cleveland's utilization of the lakefront is god awful.
The worst.
If anybody has been to Chicago and how they utilize their lake, it's incredible. You have a lot there, right there on the lake, from mixed use development to museums, sports as in like volleyball courts and running paths, and it's such a good use of the lake. Ours is the exact opposite. It's hard to access. It's congested because of you have 90 running right there, 90 and 2 running right there. It's really a terrible use of the lake, and it's something that Clevelanders in particular have bemoaned for years, because of other cities that have done it properly. Instead, we have an airport and industry sitting right where some of the best lakefront views and property are.
And that's kind of the eyesore. And what I was talking about at the beginning, too, with Burke Lakefront Airport is that it brings in certain things, like the air show comes every year. And, with the executives coming in, it helps the hospitals and that kind of thing, because a lot of executives fly in because Cleveland Clinic is so highly renowned. In terms of the everyday person, though, like Erik and I, who live in Cuyahoga County, who live in downtown Cleveland, it's just a poor use of what could be fantastic area for the home of the Cleveland Browns, for, development for more sporting event, esque things as well. You were talking about like volleyball courts and stuff like that, basketball courts. I think that would be fantastic to put here, as they've kind of talked about around where current Cleveland Browns Stadium sits today. I have one more picture here. This is kind of an aerial from the other side, including the Rock Hall. I just thought this was another good look of like how everything would flow and work out. So the walkway from kind of where the stadium is now, instead of turning left to go to the stadium, you're turning right, going to that walkway and walking all the way up to Huntington Bank Field. Any other extra reactions? I just wanted to give a couple examples since this is all brand new. It broke on Tuesday.
No, I mean, I'll reiterate just what the same problem with the current Browns location is, access. They need to figure out that land bridge, whether it's rerouting 90 or two and taking that out, figuring some way that there's better access, because current Cleveland Browns Stadium and even to this area of Burke, there are only a couple of egress points, and they're awful. Burke right now sits on a 2-lane divided road, which is a 25-mile-an-hour to 35-mile-an-hour speed limit. And I can only imagine on game day what that would look like if they redeveloped it. So a lot of changes would need to be made, but ultimately I do like this location a lot.
I wanna look real quick back at this picture. I don't know if you can see it because this is super zoomed out. You can kind of see it towards the east end of the stadium. I wish I could use my pointer right now, but they do have a bridge that basically connects the Muni lot, where most of the tailgating is now anyway, to walking straight over what is, that highway road, to make it a little bit more accessible. And then, of course, then you're talking about the land bridge and all the other type of developments they're talking about. Real quick, I just wanted to show, for example, compare and contrast. This is what the inside of the Brook Park location renderings looked like. And then this is the outside walking up area, basically a ballpark village around the stadium as well. Eric, if you had to pick one, which one are you more in favor of?
If I had to pick one, I'm a fan of keeping the Browns in Cleveland. So if it's feasible to do a dome and do it downtown, I would pick Burke as a location. I'm fine with, I have my issues with it, but I'm fine with the actual stadium itself that's going in Brook Park, just the location change.
Yeah, I'm with you on both fronts. I like both renderings. I'm not going to lie. Like, I'm happy with either. More partial to staying downtown. But if I had to pick one, like, say both were able to go downtown, for example, I think the Burke one is more interesting to me. I like how it looks more. It looks more like a traditional football stadium. Eric, we did an episode like this one time when John couldn't make it, I don't know, a couple months ago, and you were joking that this looked like an Amazon facility compared to Burke. I think, if you look at Burke, I'll go back to it real quick. That looks like a football stadium to me, for sure.
It does, and it's not an Amazon facility. It is, it's basically Crocker Park. I mean, it looks
Right.
like condos and shopping, and I don't know. It's uninspiring to me. But you're right. This looks more like a traditional stadium.
Yeah, I'm with you. So you've been hyping up your end of this to me all week, so I'm ready for you to dive into whatever you're going to tell these people. I've been keeping it hush-hush because I want live reactions out of Ricky Vaughn himself right now. Take the floor, man.
All right. So as I mentioned earlier, at the office, particularly my funds of At the Office, have commissioned an important study as well of a third, or I guess technically fourth possible location for future Cleveland Browns games. So I just want to walk you guys through this real quick. Please hold any questions till the end of this presentation, but let me just add this in.
Oh my God.
All right. So your future Cleveland Browns. First of all, I understand the importance of keeping a team in a city, its identity. But one of the things that I like most about the Cleveland Browns is how well they travel. I've been to multiple states where I've gone and watched games at Browns backers bars. I've been in London, England, where I've met fellow Browns backers. Shout out the I think it's the British Bulldogs Browns backers. I believe that's the name. We're all over the world. We travel really well. Ohio State's the same. This is a global community. And what better place to have a Cleveland Browns stadium with a global community than on the moon?
So
Listen.
for those of you, and I'm sorry to cut you off, I know you're sales pitching hard right now, but for those of you who are not watching the visual side of what we do here and are just listening to the audio on wherever you download your podcasts, Eric has a rendering of an open air Cleveland Browns stadium on the moon on the screen right now. That's what I'm looking at.
To be fair, these are just early renderings. If you'll look at the next slide, there's your dome.
Dude, what are we doing?
And then hold on, let me continue.
Okay.
If you look at the next slide, one of the things that the Haslams really want to control is parking, hotel. There's a lot of space on the moon, believe it or not. There's not a lot of business currently there. And so there's plenty of parking. You'll see some like moon rovers here, some traditional cars too. Here's a dome, though.
I feel like
And
we're
then
doing an April Fool's episode right now.
and then
Continue.
let me continue on. So the Browns, what you're seeing on your screen now, if you're just listening, the Browns are teaming up with NASA. This is a partnership, so the Browns will have exclusive rockets that will service fans going to these games in a decked out Browns Falcon rocket. It's very cool, believe me. I just have a couple slides left. There will be hotels. This is a custom Browns hotel, as you can see again on the moon. Apparently, we're also creating other planets because there's a couple planets in the sky over here, but that's okay. Don't worry about that. So you'll be able to land, go to your hotel, have a cocktail while looking out at Earth, however many thousand miles away, a couple 100,000.
AI was really your friend for this episode, huh?
And then, no, I had a study commission, like I said.
Okay, my bad.
And then it's really important that we have retail space, of course. So there's going to be shopping, there's going to be food. As you can see here in this picture, we've even included a little fake Lake Erie off to the right so that you can really feel at home while you're on the moon. So all-inclusive trips, of course. You'll blast off and be able to watch your Cleveland Browns on the moon. We'll be able to watch it live. The signal does not take long, believe it or not, to get back from the moon. It takes several minutes to get from Mars, which I considered originally. But, you know, it takes several weeks, if not months, to get to Mars. I think it's months. Whereas the moon's a lot more doable. Thank you, Dylan. I see Dylan really likes my idea here.
Yeah.
So that's the final slide. Now, let me get into why I'm pitching the Cleveland Browns Moon Stadium. The reason that I'm getting into this is because I'm sick of these fake-ass politicians and Cleveland sources that are throwing out bullshit that's never going to happen and isn't feasible at all. We have as much chance of building a stadium on the moon as we do building one at Burke Lakefront Airport. First of all, Noah was right in the beginning. It takes a lot to build on Burke. It is the site of a former trash heap.
Dump. Yeah, a dump.
There have been estimates on what it would take just to clean that up in the hundreds of millions of dollars. It's below Burke, by the way, so it's probably even more. You got to get like specialized divers and shit just to clean this stuff up. After that, you have to get the FAA license back, the airport license from the FAA. This is an overflow airport, even though it seems stupid and only caters to the ultra wealthy. It's also emergency landing space that overflows from Cleveland Hopkins. That process typically takes about 10 years to get the FAA license revoked. I guess you could do like Mayor Daley in Chicago and just go out one night at 3 a.m. and bulldoze some of the runways. Probably won't work this day and age, but here's my point. Here's what I'm getting at. The Cleveland Browns situation, the stadium situation, this has been settled for many months now. Insiders inside the building, I have sources inside the building, they have told me, and this isn't bullshit, this is real. They have told me that this decision has been done and dusted for quite a while now. And that not only did the Cleveland Browns know that, of course, and they were choosing when to release it, but City Hall knew this as well. So all the posturing that you've been seeing about keeping the Browns downtown, this frivolous freaking lawsuit, which is ridiculous, all of this is political posturing. And the reason that you're seeing it is because of guys like Mayor Bibb who have designs on a higher office. Listen, I was a guy that voted for Bibb. I believed in his vision for Cleveland, and I think it's still a good vision. I think he struggled a little bit with reality, the rubber meeting the pavement, so to speak,
right.
And how things actually get done in a major metropolitan city. This is where inexperience as a politician really comes in. Don't get me wrong. I am so glad to move on from the corruption of the former administration. I'm not saying that Bibb is a bad guy at all, but I'm sick of this bullshit posturing because that's all it is. The Browns are going to Brook Park. That's done. I would love to see them at Burke. It's not a possibility. What it would take to make that happen, I don't know. Maybe if you had a spare $10 billion lying around, it would be easy. And you know what? I will give I will give Mayor Bibb and the city a little bit of credit. I agree that the city's money needs to go towards city services and things that affect everyday people. You know, the road leading right outside of our work that Noah and I are at every single day finally got paved. That's
Right.
been overdue for several years now.
Yep.
I mean, the services to citizens that can barely afford a meal, these are things that need to be accounted for. And the fact that the city, again, is just posturing over and over and over again to try to make themselves look good and make the Browns look bad, the lawsuit is unbelievable to me. You're basically suing, saying, hey, you fulfilled your contract, but now some law we made up, which, again, all for keeping the Browns in Cleveland, they're not moving to Baltimore. That's not what we're talking about here. I know I've said a lot. I know I started with Browns on the moon, but I'm just tired of the bullshit. Browns to Brook Park is happening, and we need to wrap our heads around it. And proposals like this, you know, maybe I'll put one together about Menor next week, because that's not happening either. So let's get our head wrapped around it. Let's either get excited. I get it. You don't like that they're moving from Cleveland. I don't really either. Maybe this will spur development of the lakefront. Probably not, but I hope so. I hope we can move in a direction where we can build something like Chicago on our lakefront. But for now, that's not happening. But making these just political maneuvering for the sake of politics, first of all, we see through it. So Mayor Bibb, City Council, anyone else doing this, the people suing, stop with the bullshit. We'd rather hear some realness from you. If it is something about city streets and cleaning up Cleveland, maybe we use some of the funds to hire some freaking police. That'd be an idea, because the city is turning to shit lately. I digress. You get my point, I think, though.
No, I'm with you 100%. That was going to be, I assumed, because I did spoil it for myself a little bit. I saw in the preview below that the first thing on his PowerPoint was a Brown Stadium on the moon. So I kind of started clicking and understanding where he was going to go with this.
I should have put a title slide. I'll do that next time.
No,
it was a quick study.
Next,
it was quick. Yeah. It happened today.
Right. Next case study. I totally get it. That was my main takeaway. Is I like everything about how the Burke rendering looks, feels, where it's at. It's disappointing because it feels like something that maybe if we talked about this way earlier than they did, could have happened if they started talking with the Haslams about this, say, 2018 instead of 2024 or whatever the actual conversation started. Whatever, I digress. It's frustrating because I like it so much, and it's we're going to Brook Park and we need to just let it go. And I agree with everything you're saying too. You know, there's got to be a balance. City funding shouldn't have to go to that and all of that. But, you know, that's for people smarter than me, I guess, to figure out and, you know, eventually screw us on anyway, right?
The thing that I guess it's just tax money, right? Because the thing that I can't compute in my head is it's 7 games a year, 8 games a year, 9 games a year, max.
There you go.
Yeah, we're getting there. I'm not a math guy. You know, I was throwing in like maybe we'll do one in England or whatever. It's, you know, 8 games, 9 games max a year. The revenue from parking, et cetera, I don't feel like it's enough that the city's afraid of that. I'm thinking it's just the tax from the business itself. By the way, when you hear things like tax abatement for downtown and what the city was offering, that was a bad deal. The Browns as an organization, we talk about it all the time. They're a business. They shouldn't take a deal just because the city said, oh, look, this is what we're willing to do. Take it or leave it. It was a bad financial deal for the Cleveland Browns. I'm not sure why anybody would ever take a deal like that. I'm a big believer that owners should have, they should put up more of their money, these billionaires, to fund the stadiums and playgrounds where they're making and taking in all this cash. That's a different argument for a different day, but I don't like how much owners try to leverage cities. At the same time, you have cities like Oakland, for example, that do nothing for their owners, and then their teams are gone and really for good reason. And you
It's a
feel
give
for
and
the
take. I get
fans.
it. Yeah. No, that's what it is. It's a give and take. It's trying to balance what's right and what's wrong, what's doing too much and too little. And I think this whole Cleveland situation shows it in such a poor light because we're like suing the Browns over a law that should only really be brought up. And even then, who knows how legal the law is if they were trying to move them to like Utah or something like that, not 15 minutes down the
Right.
road in an area that you already zone as part of downtown Cleveland because your airport's there. I don't know. Everything's just ticky tacky and political. And I personally don't love dealing with all of that. But at the same time, I like talking about like the future of a franchise I pour a lot of money and time and interest into. So sitting here and talking about some of these renderings are still interesting and worthwhile to me. But it just starts getting you going down the rabbit hole of being frustrated because you don't want to hear what this person, this councilman, this representative for Haslam Sports Group has to say. It just gets tiring, and it's like, just tell us what you're doing and stop, showing different cards and acting like something's going on. They're going to Brook Park. We know this from
Exactly.
the information that we know, from me and you and what you've told me. But regardless, I digress. You get what I'm saying, right?
I do. It's done and dusted. And listen, I get it. There's a nostalgia factor, right? A couple weekends ago, I was celebrating at Muni. I hadn't been to Muni in a while. It's not something I do every weekend, but it's a lot of fun. You go to Muni, you walk over to the stadium, you're right there, you're with friends and family. And for a lot of Browns fans that, maybe you're 60, 65 years old, you have memories for years of doing exactly that, going to the same stadium. Municipal was right there in
Right.
that same spot. So there's a nostalgia factor, and it's the same nostalgia why people hold on to the team name Indians and for Chief Wahoo. But the fact is that good things are coming to an end. And as much as I love nostalgia, we were talking about Halloween and Scooby-Doo and Rugrats before we got on. Nostalgia is cool as hell, but when I was in college, I went back with some friends to rewatch Rugrats, and it didn't hold up all that well as a college kid. It wasn't really great. My point is, we had some really good times, some really sad times, but some really good
Really
times
sad times.
at this stadium. But at the end of the day, it's time to move on. The Yankees built Yankee Stadium too. And for the first time, it was since like 1927 or whatever, it was off of the different grounds that old Yankee Stadium was on. Grounds where Babe Ruth and Mickey Mantle played baseball, the greats, right? And the new stadium, while it does feel a bit antiseptic, for lack of a better word, things move on. They were just hosting a World Series there. So I think that we need to stop holding on to the past quite so hard. Those memories aren't gone. Those good times aren't gone. Who knows? We can make a new Muni that's way more fun. I don't know. If you've been to Ohio State tailgates, you know that the bar can be set higher than what we do for Browns. It's time to pack up and get on with this emotionally because it's happening.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm going to take us to break. When we come back, we're going to talk about some of the fan favorites in Cleveland, some of our frustrations with fan favorites in Cleveland. Really thought this topic applied with all the stuff that's going on with, Jameis Winston starting to garner some hype behind his name, Deshaun Watson having little to no hype behind his name, except for the select few on X that are still out there pounding the drum for the guy.
Shout out
We'll talk
Bickerstaff
about
for
that. Right. Leroy.
Leroy.
Regardless, we'll be right back with this episode of At the Office after these commercial messages. And we are back with At the Office. Erik, we had a lot to talk about with this whole stadium thing, right? I want to turn it over to you. Fan favorites and fan frustrations, an open discussion on the players, the moments, all of the important stuff that's going on. Current Cleveland, past Cleveland, just kind of want to go through some of these names that, stuck. Your Matthew Dellavedovas, for example. That's, I think, a great example. But go ahead. I want you to kick us off here for a second, and then I'll jump in need be.
Yeah, I made a short list of some of the things that I wanted to talk about. This did collide so nicely with the end of our last topic because it is so nostalgic driven.
Right.
I grew up going to the ballparks as a kid. I was fortunate enough that my dad worked at a company where we had tickets very often to all the games. So I got to see a lot of these moments live. And the things that I remember most are normally the people I was with sharing these moments with. Um, Cleveland sports have made me incredibly happy over the years, and they've broken my heart over the years as well. So let's start with some of the happy. Obviously, the biggest one would be the 2016 Cavs. I think everybody in Cleveland and who is a Cavs fan obviously remembers where they were that night, that day, who they were with. Shout out to my little sister Maddie because I was with her that night. That was magical. By the way, my dad still gives me shit that the only game in that series I didn't watch with him was Game 7 on Father's Day.
Right.
I still haven't heard the end of that one.
I love that story. Well, I don't love it for you, but I think it's an entertaining story through and through.
It's those moments though that it's like time is suspended. And I'll never forget the end of that game. You know, obviously you had the block and the three and all the magic of that. I was at the top of the 9. I'm blanking on what the bar was called. It's been renamed since.
Yeah.
And I was watching the game up there, and you're just in shock a little bit. You get those chills. Girl next to me burst out crying when it was over. And it's just pure happiness. And I took an elevator down from the 9 and we made our way over to 4th Street. The most insane crowd, maybe besides the parade, but that I've ever seen in Cleveland. People are high-fiving in the street. It's wall-to-wall people from the 9. If you know Cleveland, it's several blocks from the 9 to 4th Street. At one point, right on East 9th, there was a fire truck that people had kind of taken over. They've climbed up on this fire truck. And police come in on horses, which are great for crowd control, by the way. So police come in on horses. They're like, hey, get down. Everybody climbs off this fire truck. And then the police are high-fiving people. Nobody's arrested. It was the most amazing night I think I've ever experienced as a Clevelander. So that's got to be number one.
I agree with you for that, right? And I wanted to take this from a different angle. We've done a lot of, being happy and reminiscent and having nostalgia for Cleveland on this show throughout, the many episodes that we've done here at the office. I wanted to look at some of our low points, and, this was picked a little bit pessimistically.
Jeez, no. Can I at least get through my happy points first?
No, we'll go back and forth here because I don't want it to just fair. Be rain.
Noah will be the downer, then I'll be the upper. I got it.
So I wanna bring up
Happy
another
Halloween,
Browns
Grinch.
moment. Yeah, well, the Browns had a quarterback that, in another world, in another reality, could have maybe been a franchise guy.
Jeff Driscoll?
No, before that they took in the first round of their first draft back as a franchise. No.
Oh, not Johnny Football? Tim Couch?
I'm talking about Tim Couch. And I'm talking about the time Tim Couch got a concussion and Cleveland Browns Stadium erupted as a stretch. Bursted into cheers. Very similar, very reminiscent of the Deshaun Watson injury. I just want to call that out for a second, right? Because I think that is a very low point and a frustration I have as a Browns fan, as a former football player, even though I look like a baseball player, like a pitching god, I might add, right now. You
Can
never
I break
do that.
in real quick?
Yeah.
Because I'm not trying to be a dick, but I gotta ask, how old were you when Tim Couch got this concussion?
Probably like 2. I think it was the what was it? What season was it?
It would have been early. So he was 99 to
03,
2003. Yeah, I mean,
so I would have been like
last very long.
So I'm not there to remember it, but it's still one of those things that I think apply to what's going on in Cleveland sports right now. And I want to bring it up as a low point to be like, let's do better, right? Let's be better people. I know there's some comparison and we're a passionate fan base and I get that. Let's be better. Let's go back to the happy though.
Back to the happy. All right. I got to take it back to also 2016. This is next on my list. and it's the Cleveland Indians versus the Chicago Cubs. And I promise you what I'm bringing up is happy. Game 7 was such a whirlwind of emotion. I think we all remember this, of course. But Rajai Davis comes up to bat. I'm in the basement with my dad. Shout out. Hi, Brian, if you're out there. And we're sitting in the basement, and I turn to my dad and I go, how great would it be if he hits a home run right here? And I know it's one of those things where you go, bullshit, you didn't say that. Brian out there will confirm I did say that. He hit that home run, and we looked to each other, and we're just jumping up and down screaming. I could not believe that happened in that moment. It's kind of like Freddie Freeman's grand slam at the end of game 1 of this World Series. It's those moments where you go, holy shit, that just happened. That I will remember for the rest of my life. I thought we were going to go on and win the World Series. I'm a big baseball guy, and I was so excited. And then, of course, the rest happened. But
the rest of the game happened, right?
In that moment, pure joy.
I want to bring up, and I agree with you, I agree that whole run, even as a guy who wasn't as into baseball as I obviously am now, watching that World Series, getting hyped that we might go from having 0 and the whole drought worth of 50 plus years to 2 in the same year was insane to me, right? I want to bring up, let's see here. I want to bring up Bottlegate. I'm coming at the fans right now. Bottlegate's another one. I think this one's a little bit more justified than sharing a injury. But if you don't know, it was a missed call. I believe, Eric, if you could give me some background, because it looks like you're Googling right now.
December of 2001, Bottlegate, which was the beer bottle game. It was a controversy on the field. We were playing the Jacksonville Jaguars, and we were 6-6 at the time. I think this is kind of important because we were trying to keep our playoff hopes alive. We were down by 5, 15-10 with a minute remaining, minute and 8 seconds to be exact. And we had to convert on 4th and 2 on the Jaguars' 12-yard line. Tim Couch took the snap. He passed it short to Quincy Morgan, who caught the ball for a 3-yard gain and a first down. He appeared to bobble the football, but it was called a complete pass on the field. And Couch hurried the offense to the line of scrimmage and spiked the ball with 48 seconds remaining. Here's where things got weird. As we know in football, if you get that next playoff, it does not matter what happens next. They can't go back and review it. They hurried to the line. They snapped the ball. Play has taken place. There's no going backwards. Well, the officials decided that they were going to review that anyway. 2 plays earlier, not 1, 2 plays earlier, and they overturned it, giving the ball to the Jaguars. Obviously, it was controversial because they cannot do that. That's not possible. It's illegal. And so Browns fans, obviously enraged, began throwing objects onto the field, which in this case were mainly those plastic beer bottles, as well as trash cans. And the officials had to announce that the game would end 48 seconds early, and everyone exited the league. But the league office actually called and said, hey, no, you got to finish the game. So they came back onto the field, and after 2 quarterback kneels by the Jaguars, the game was over.
Yeah. So this is more of a negative, in my opinion, in terms of the Browns just having bad luck. I think it's still a bad look for us throwing stuff out on the field, but I get the justification on the side of being upset.
I don't know, man. I
go for it.
It's not like I can have a take that says you should be able to throw shit on the field.
Right.
But when you get absolutely screwed, I mean, we're just making up shit at this point. It's like the tuck rule with Brady. When you get screwed that hard, you got to channel your rage somehow. You got to show your disapproval. And there's no injustice is one of those things that just sits with me so heavy and so hard because there's nobody to come and like slap the NFL and be like, hey, you guys are idiots. This is bullshit. Like they should have been fined $100 million that went to the Browns. how do you channel that when you have no outlet? It's going to boil over, and that's what happened. So I forgive all
Especially
the
when you're
fans.
drinking and all that. I'm with you.
Doesn't help.
100%.
Can't
Yeah.
have lids in Browns Stadium ever, or any stadium ever since then.
Yeah, exactly. What's your next one, man?
My next one. Well, I just want to continue really quick on that same note, just
Yeah, no,
because
go ahead. I'm sorry.
on my list I did have penalties against the Browns. There's so many to name. The two that really stick out in my mind are that Chiefs game where we would have went on to win the Super Bowl that year. And that was with Baker, of course. And then there's a Raiders game several years ago. And the only thing I remember is that Chubb clearly had a first down to seal the game. And they marked it short. They moved the football back. Video evidence showed everything showed he had a first down. And it disappeared. This was another fourth down. Disappeared. Raiders go on to win that game.
That was
so I get the frustration.
Their rookie year. They were still in Oakland too at that point.
They were in Oakland.
Had the baseball diamond on the field. I remember that. No, yeah, that is that one was a rough one. I kind of forgot about that until you brought it up. The Chubb one, I should say.
It just makes your blood boil, man. Like that's what happens to Cleveland. But let's go back to Happy.
Yeah, go for it.
The year is. Hold on, I do have to Google this. My apologies.
No, do your thing.
Feel free to fill the space for a second.
Yeah, of course. No, I agree. You know, I'm thinking about some of the other bad ones, some of the bad no calls. My favorite is always when we go down that rabbit hole is how the announcers always sound so partial to the other team and never the Cleveland team. Like, there they go again. Yeah, it's horrible.
All right, I'm gonna take you guys back to 2001. I was a wee lad back then. 2001 would make me 10, but there was a night at the Jake that I will never forget for my entire life. We were playing the Mariners. We had the 6 seats on the first baseline. Shout out again to my dad's company, who provided said tickets. I believe it was his company. But we're playing the Mariners, and these are the days of Omar Vizquel, the Alomar brothers, Kenny Lofton, etc. And we go down 14-2. And my dad wanted to leave the game. My mom said, "We're not leaving. What are you talking about? Not a chance." There were some cool ladies from Seattle actually there sitting right next to us. We were talking to them the whole game. They had traveled to Cleveland for it. Shout out wherever those ladies are. They might be dead by now.
That's crazy.
But we were down 12-0 in the third inning in that game. And believe it or not, we clawed our way out of that deficit to go on to win. There was a 13th run in the bottom of the 8th. That would make us go on to win that game. It's one of the biggest comebacks in MLB history. And I learned 2 things. Never give up until the last inning. We kind of saw that with the Yankees last night. I think they had that wrapped, and then the 5th inning just kind of unraveled. But never give up until the end, and never leave early, because you'll be on your way home listening on the radio and you'll miss one of the greatest games ever to be played at Jacobs Field. And I'm lucky that I was able to stay and see all of it.
Yeah, I have always been of the mindset of I'm not leaving until the clock hits 0 for a plethora of reasons. I mean, remember that game Joe Flacco came back and beat the Browns in like the final 2 minutes down like 2 or 3 scores? That's one that always makes me.
The kickoff. I was at that Monday night game against the Ravens where they ran back. We had it wrapped up, and I think it was the last like 30 seconds they ran back a kickoff. I think we had just scored to win the game, and we kicked the ball off, and they ran it back to win.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that night. But let's go back to your sad.
No, I'm gonna end this topic with.
Wait, I have another good one.
Well, do it real quick.
Done yet. Okay.
Because mine should be the bookend to this. I
fair.
firmly believe.
So I want to set the scene. Let me say first, by drink responsibly and only if you're 21 and older in the United States. Here I am in the dog pound. I don't remember the date. It doesn't matter. But I am drinking to forget the Browns that have not won a game in many, 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 many games. And it's a night game against the Jets. I think it was Sunday night. And I was with my friend Kaylee, shout out Kaylee, and we were hammered together. And a little known guy by the name of Baker Mayfield enters the game and proceeds to have a comeback win against the Jets, even catching a touchdown pass himself. And by the way, it was free beer that night as well because the Bud Light fridges were unlocked. No one knows I'm not a big beer guy. I'm more of a kind of liquor guy.
I don't even
that was
like.
the best.
I don't like Bud Light, so
It was the
I wouldn't
best
drink it,
tasting
though.
beer I've had in my entire life. That was the first victory. And I got to tell you, to this date, I've been to a lot of things. I've been to cool games. I've been to Ohio State games. I've been to World Series games. I've never heard a crowd louder than I heard them that night. It was insane. Our first win.
I am very much with you because I think this ties in perfectly to how I want to wrap this up. So obviously, I've mentioned a few times on the show that I work for the Cavs as a part-time, crew member, just helping with some things during game day. Last night at the game, they played a tribute to the late great Jim Donovan. Rest his soul. But I got chills watching and remembering the moment as they were showing it on the big screen of the Cleveland Browns officially clinching to move on to the playoffs, to eventually beat the Pittsburgh Steelers, to eventually get screwed by the Kansas City Chiefs and the Zebras.
Always.
The moment of Jim Donovan announcing that, I can almost do that call word for word myself because of how much it floated around, local media then, local media now, probably local media forever in terms of his legacy. The only thing that's missing is all of you, because it was during COVID. The Browns finally got in. I just think that moment in terms of modern, more recent Cleveland sports history, even past the championship, was such a big, get the monkey off of our back. Everybody's ecstatic, even at a time where, it was hard for people to be ecstatic. I just think that's one of the top things going on. One of my favorite moments of all time. Had some of my favorite players involved at the time. I was a huge Baker fan at the time. I was a huge Jarvis Landry fan. I'm still a huge Myles Garrett fan. Some of these faces of Cleveland sports were involved. And I just think, in honor of Jim Donovan, to wrap up the segment, as well as to just focus on one good thing. I don't want to be the negative guy for the whole segment. That's not in my nature. I just had to bring that one up.
Yeah, Jimmy D was one of one. It's funny that you mentioned that because people were talking about Vin Scully and the Dodgers. He had also passed away, and the lost kind of art of listening to sports on the radio. And it made me want to start listening to some games on the radio again. Kind of, again, it's a nostalgic thing. But Jim Donovan was one of one, and he will definitely be missed in Cleveland.
Forever. Erik, let's wrap this thing up. Let's go to final thoughts and takes. What final thought, take? Give it to me. Give it to me spicy. I'm ready.
I had two lined up, and I'm going to pivot away from both of them, actually, to kind of make a public service announcement. And that is that everybody needs to get out and exercise their right to vote. Today I went and voted. I know there's a lot going on in my shirt, but right there's the sticker, because if you don't have that, you didn't vote.
You did.
And this guy calling me out when I let frustrating without an R slip like 4 times tonight.
Whatever.
Anyway, I went and voted early tonight, and I stood in line. There was quite a long line. There were a lot of people voting early. And every time that I exercise that civic duty, there's kind of a pride. I'm standing in line with people from all different walks of life, different races, different creeds, different backgrounds. Um, the woman in front of me was wearing a hijab. It just makes me feel so proud as an American that we're able to exercise our right, regardless of your political beliefs. It is everybody's right and everybody's duty to go do exactly that. Um, and when I'm there, it makes me feel patriotic, for lack of a better word. So as citizens, I think all of us, I hate when I hear that your vote doesn't matter. They do matter. First of all, regardless of who you're voting for, or what you think your state might be doing, anything can happen. But there are a lot of down ballot races that are very important too, and local elections really matter, and um, local issues really matter as well. So I just want to say that get out there, get your voice heard, and get voting.
Yeah, so we've hit a couple deep things, and I want to reel it back and have a little bit of bubbly fun. Not that mine is fun per se, but getting back on the realm of just talking sports and being happy go lucky or whatever. And I got a question, a thought process that kind of crossed my mind when I was working the Cavs game last night. There were audible, loud chants for Bronny James to go into the game late into the fourth. And I just don't get it. I do not get the hype of wanting to. I don't get cheering for the other team, first of all, and cheering for a guy who, he deserves it for some reason, but doesn't deserve it for a lot of other reasons. To get on the court just to watch him, it felt weird to me. It felt like we were cheering on for something to happen that didn't need to happen. It shouldn't have happened. I don't think Bronny should be playing any real NBA minutes, regardless of garbage time or not. Very weird moment to me. I was surprised. Like, I was talking with some of my coworkers. We were all kind of taken aback. Like, wait, are they really chanting for Bronny right now? Totally get it for LeBron James, because he brought us the championship and all that. But his son, who really isn't doing anything for the city and is a Nepo hire.
I was going to say, it's a Nepo baby. Yeah.
A Nepo hire in the Lakers organization. It just doesn't make sense to me. So I disagree with the chance for Bronny to go in the game last night. And that is my hot take.
I don't disagree with you, but I feel like it was more from a place of, hey, we are so much better. We are kicking your ass, and we don't need LeBron anymore. I felt like it was coming from that place, but I agree with you. It was weird. I thought it was weird too. I don't know. It's why people are obsessed with the Kardashians. So it's a similar vibes. People get obsessed with these weird celebrity things. It doesn't make any sense to me, but whatever. We got the dub.
I'm with you. And I guess I could look at it from that lens too. The Braun, we don't even need Braun anymore. We're just that damn good of a basketball team again. Maybe it is that way. Maybe that was some of the other people. And I don't want to discredit everywhere, because there was a lot of, I don't want to say Lakers fans, but at the very least, people in Lakers LeBron jerseys at that game. Yeah. Very excited kids, adults, all of that. So I get it to an extent why it was audible. But to me, like, if I was a fan at that game, I don't think personally, I know personally I wouldn't chant for Bronny, so it just doesn't click for me.
I will say, Erik, it was kind of cool, though, that he got his first points, like, literally within a day, in October, that his dad got his first points in the same building. It's just kind of cool.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. Erik, you got anything else you want to say to the people before we wrap this thing up?
No, I had fun tonight. I'm glad we were back at it. I do miss my boy John. He is still alive. He's going to join us soon, we promise. But as always, it was a good time with you.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to sit down and chop it up and talk a little bit about sports. Typically on Wednesdays, had the Cavs game last night. So here we are on a Thursday. Happy Halloween to everyone out there. Cleveland, enjoy the rest of your week. Make sure you stay safe out there. Support your Brownies, support your Cavs, support your Monsters.
Buckeyes with a big game this week.
That too. Looking forward to that. Make sure you go out and vote next week, because the next time you will see me and Erik's faces together we may have a new president. Well, we will have a new president regardless, actually. We will have a new elected president. Do with that information what you will. And until next time, Cleveland, have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you soon.